Welcome to Onesies, a podcast of one season wonders and blunders. My name's Andrew.
Hi, I'm Emily.
We are continuing our way through Joe's Life, a 1993 ABC sitcom starring Peter Onorati, Mary Page Keller, George DeCenzo, Mimi Kennedy, some
serial rapist Danny Masterson,
who did not appear this episode, and then a bunch of children who did not continue acting because their experience on Joe's Life did not inspire them.
Watching Mary Page Keller and Joe Onorati make out every episode was grossing them out.
Oh man. Get yourself a wife who can do both, right? Or actually three things. She makes the money, she takes care of the kids, and she's a little
hot trot. Yeah.
That's the 90s man's dream, basically, actually. So see all of Rene Russo's movie roles until
poor Rene Russo.
I love Rene Russo.
I do too.
And it wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't. There was some bad stuff in there, but it wasn't like the propaganda aspect of it's worse than the whatever. Okay, so we'll have to move on. Thomas Crown Affair is great though. Okay, so the episodes. Oh, what are your three things? Sorry.
Oh gosh, I want to talk about the American Dream. I want to talk about. I'm going backwards now. Fighting scene. And exterior shots.
Okay. I think American Dream is what I was just going to use. Kosher Deli. Oh, crap. Okay. Let's see. What else? I Could Write Joe's Life. And what's that whining noise? But really, we could start with Barbie Lunchbox because there's a mention of a Barbie Lunchbox. So I would imagine Greta Gerwig would be able to write us a nice essay on the devaluation of growing girls' interests in popular media and the response to it in mega budget motion pictures. But yeah, so it starts with Joe making lunch for the kids, and
he's making breakfast and packing their lunches at the same time, which I will say is pretty good.
He's a multitasker.
Pretty good parenting.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that he hates his kids the whole episode.
I mean, they suck. I mean, kids just are the bane of existence. But yeah, so he tells daughter that he's going to put it in her Barbie lunchbox if she's not careful or something.
No. She says, I can't believe I have to take my own lunch. Why don't you just put it in a Barbie lunchbox?
Oh, okay.
And make me carry it around and write "Don't date me" on it. Like, she's the one who brings that up. Because she thinks that it sucks because it's not cool to bring your lunch to school, right? You got to buy lunch. And she thinks it's going to make her look like a baby.
But we're done with that because now it's actually about it's about Jeannie, Scotty, Jean, and Paulie and Petey Playback.
Playback, yeah. That was a monstrosity. I saw it sitting there on the table, and I was like, "What? How is this going to come into play?" And it represents the most annoying toy possible, which is essentially just playing the repeat game where it repeats everything the last person just said to you. I don't know how they did it, but it was movie magic because it was essentially tape recording the last sentence somebody said, and then you hit a button and it plays it back. Much to the chagrin of the entire family, except for Joe. Joe thinks it's funny. He's not annoyed by it at all, which is weird because he seems like somebody who would take every opportunity to be annoyed at his children.
Yeah, but they can't get too real with Joe and his children in this because it's not about him being in prison for beating them to death. And hiding the bodies upstairs so he can get a quickie in with Mary Page Keller before he gets taken away.
That is another thing. Their chemistry just keeps building and building on this. I mean, those two, were they dating at the time? I mean, they seem to...
It's the animal magnetism of a Jersey boy, a working class Jersey boy who just wants to get his hands dirty and work. But will he step up and provide for his family? Let's find out this episode of Joe's life.
Yeah, the episode is called "He Ain't Working, He's My Brother." We forgot to mention the
we
title.
We did forget to mention the title. They've got some very witty titles.
Oh boy.
But okay, so yes, so Paul and Scott, is that his name or is it Gene? It's Scott.
Scott. Gene is from the other one.
Right?
Yeah.
They're being shitty brothers to each other, and Paulie is sick of hearing that he's the older one, so he has to give it all up for Scotty Gene.
It starts with Scotty borrows Paulie's baseball mitt.
Not yet. We're not there yet.
Oh.
Yeah, first we've got to do the...
But they're just fighting with the little doll.
They're just fighting. And
the doll is playing the repeat thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mom comes into the kitchen. She's like, that thing's terrible. And Joe's like, it was funny in the store. And this is where my note is Peter Honorati stoned? Because he seems really detached this episode.
Yeah.
Like the only time he gets enthusiastic is when Mary Page Keller's crawling on him. The rest of the time he's just like, man, I shouldn't have done this show.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have done this show. He should have found himself a nice drama, probably on NBC. He should have been Rocket Romano, frankly. Okay. But yes, so then Joe's got an interview this afternoon. He's going to dazzle them with his managerial skill and his butt kissing. And the wife's like, you don't need to kiss butt, Joe. And Joe's like, they've got a dental plan. And she's like, well, you take chapstick. And this is the thing, folks. Dental plans were the unicorns of workplace insurance in the 80s and 90s. I don't even know if it existed in the early 80s.
I applied for a job recently that did not have dental insurance. And I was shocked.
If you have dental, you're like, why is this a big deal? I pay $5 a month for this. But it's getting, that the $5 a month and then the discounts on when you need a crown or whatever.
Yeah.
But then Joe's over there talking about something, and he's like, what's that whining noise? And he's like, oh,
he's complaining.
Me.
He's complaining about the kids and not having a job, and I don't know. He's just complaining. And then he's like, he stops himself. He's like, what's that whining noise? Oh yeah, it's me. I thought that was very self-aware of him.
Real Men Don't Whine, though, is an interesting, nice... Got a lot of toxic masculinity. Well, it's very interesting, the sort of moral lesson of this episode, but it's also very frustrating because it really is Joe's a dummy and he doesn't listen to anybody else. And then he listens to them by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So the wife's like, oh, I don't like not seeing the kids. But then she sees the kids and she runs out because she's like, I don't like seeing those fucking kids.
Because they're arguing again. They're arguing about this. I think this is with the baseball mitt, but we go to commercial first, right?
We got the opening titles.
And this is the first time I watched the opening titles.
And I skipped them. So what did you note?
It's like a board game. You had said like, oh, it's a conveyor belt, and it is because he's moving along the game of life, I guess, the game of Joe's life. And it was really stupid. Also, I noted that the teenage daughter and Danny Masterson didn't seem to get credits, or the names weren't next to their pictures.
Interesting.
I don't think. It's the first time I watched it. I did not go back. I took mental note of it. I did not go back and double check because it was stupid. I hate the song except for the saxophone. And that was about it.
So, yeah.
Then when we come back from commercial, there's an exterior shot of the house. Yes. My note is, ooh, nice craftsman. So we get to see the outside of their house, which is a beautiful craftsman home.
During the day. We also are going to see the restaurant during the day.
Yeah. I feel like we saw the restaurant before.
We've seen the house before, but we've never seen it during the day.
I don't remember ever seeing the exterior.
A really generic nighttime shot. Yeah.
Oh, I don't ever remember seeing it because I was skipping the commercials.
The commercials are the best part.
I know, but I watch a lot of commercials on YouTube.
I remembered I had forgotten Brett Butler, and so I had to go look that back up, and that is a sad story.
Yeah, that's a sad story, but that episode that they were advertising, which I didn't skip, that was like, ooh, a middle-aged woman getting hit on by
I
a hot
remember
young
that
college
episode.
guy.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
about her and her friend. Yeah, but I remember that one. I'm like, why don't they getting hit on more off? Like, because yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, well, middle-aged woman. She was 33, Emily.
Was she
She was
33?
33 years old.
God.
Her career was over before she was 40. Don't be an alcoholic and a woman in Hollywood. You have to be an alcoholic and a man in Hollywood.
And beat your wife and on an airplane. Anyway.
I don't even know who we're talking about now.
Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt.
Oh, is that what he did?
Yeah. So
anyway,
the boys come in and they're fighting. And this is my second point about nice fighting.
Okay.
They do this, like, Paulie is really worked up and he's going after Scotty. And the three of them, including Joe, who's mediating per se, they have this really great choreographed thing where Paulie like jumps over at Scotty and Joe catches him by the scruff. You know, it's like, it was actually really well done, I thought.
Hey.
Like 10 seconds of goodness. I'll take it.
A couple of those Fast and the Furious movies have great action sequences. 5 and 6, if you're wondering. It's like Mad Max Fury Road.
I watched that.
Yeah.
Because I like what's her name, but she's in that too. She's in the later ones too.
Yeah.
Charlize Theron.
You shouldn't watch. I don't.
I like her.
Are you going to start worrying about action movie choreography? I don't think.
I watch kung fu movies, so no. I do.
Well, you do, but they don't jump from CGI car to CGI car.
No, they don't.
This is also where I have my note that I could write Joe's life, because they're talking about where Scotty Jean lost the Paulie's mitt.
Yes. So this is where they're arguing. Scott borrowed Paul's mitt and doesn't remember where it went. Doesn't remember what he did with it. And there's a whole discussion that will continue throughout the episode of, you can't borrow your brother's things without asking. Why do you have to pester your brother? Da, 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 da. And I had a similar thought where he's trying to get down to where the mitt is. And I was like, I know exactly where it is. Like, I could see it. It doesn't take very long because the scene is short anyway, but it was like, this isn't in front of a live studio audience, is it? No. Okay. I was going to say, people were, the laugh track was a little bit too much considering it was so, like it was so obvious where.
I've never watched the end credits. I don't know if it is.
I don't know if it is either.
But it would be hard to believe it is.
Yeah, it was. I thought the same. Not that I could have written it, but it was like, oh boy, like this is bad.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, this show is so bad. When I saw the commercial for Home Improvement, I was like, that I forgot that what's his face was a really good straight man on that. Like, I'm sure he's incredibly problematic in real life, but his sidekick at the tool time at the beginning, before Tim Allen got successful and pushed the guy out or whatever, that dude was a good straight man.
Okay. Yeah, he was really good.
So yeah, then we have the whole thing about how Paulie's 12 and Scotty Jean's 7. So we get a bunch of like snark from Paulie that goes over Joe's head, which is a real problem with the episode or in the show in general. But Paulie's like, I'll just try to remember that I should know better, and I sort of have to do everything, and nobody else has any responsibility around here except for me. And Joe's like, good, you should remember that. So then we go to the restaurant where we have Ray talking about how people can't eat. It's weird that people eat clams because they look like little prostates. Is that?
It wasn't Ray. It was the old guy.
It was the old guy. Okay.
Ray didn't make that joke. The old man made the prostate joke.
Okay. So then we get this whole thing about how Ray made the wrong thing for the old guy because he can't read the old guy's handwriting. So
He made calamari instead of calzones.
Right. And it's because the old guy wrote Calahugia, which means calzone or something.
Yeah.
To which Ray complains about the handwriting and the language, and then explains that he once worked at a kosher deli, so he knows all the ins and outs. But he
knows Hebrew, he knows Yiddish, but this is he makes a joke. That. Yeah, this is but shows a little bit of depth in character. Again, it's not a bad episode for him. It's just not a great episode for him.
It's he has not been as negatively portrayed as the pilot suggested he was going to be portrayed.
Yeah.
So at least there's that.
Yeah.
But then Stan comes in and is like, Joe, you should come work for me. And Joe's like, I don't want to be a chef. I want to live my life.
Continue. No, yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. When they get in the next scene that they talk about it, not literally the next scene, but the next scene that they're talking about this near the end, I get grossed out by his American Dream talk.
Oh, that also comes back later too. So yeah, and it's just like, how can you say no, Joe? And Joe's like, I've got 3 kids. No is what I say the best. So shouldn't yes, I want this job to feed my 3 kids be the first thing, but whatever. Then Mimi Kennedy comes in and has some nice 90s passive misogyny for the ladies. She makes fun of a lady wearing slacks or something.
Yeah, I put fat shaming on here.
Yep.
But then she also has a little bit of a funny, clever thing like, oh, I'm so sick of being a waitress. All the comments and the rude remarks and and I just don't have the time to come up with new ones. That was kind of funny. There's
occasional moments where you see actual timing come through.
Yeah.
And you're like, the show just doesn't know what to do with it.
She is so good.
Yeah.
She is so good.
Okay, so then Joe and Ray are talking some more. Joe doesn't want to do this with his life. But it's almost 3:00. Stan's kept him too late. Joe can't be expected to look at a clock, apparently.
Apparently not. It's got to be anybody else's fault.
He needs to go to his interview. He's already he's almost late for his interview. He needs to go there. Stan needs to get a permanent chef. Why not Ray? Ray's not ready. Hashtag. It doesn't seem coded. It doesn't. It's just.
No, it doesn't seem coded. But it is, he uses the example of he can't read the old guy's handwriting.
Which is stupid.
He can't decide. It is stupid. It's completely stupid. The old guy should.
Yeah, that's not a.
He should write his orders better. And that should be something. He's an old man. He's like 70 years old. He should know how to do this.
Yeah. If he make a checkbox, right?
Yeah.
Like figure it out. Yeah. So that's just an excuse. Also, The Bear is back, which Emily won't watch, but everybody else go watch The Bear. About the Chicago sandwich shop. Wonderful, inclusive, multicultural cast. It's about people working together in the 21st century. You're going to watch it when you're 60 and be like, this is great. And I'm going to be like, you should have watched it 40 years ago when I told you to.
I know. I'm such a pill.
Refuse to watch anything except I don't know what the joke
Lee is on Painting with John tonight. Are you excited?
Lee is on Foundation on Apple TV. Are you aware?
No. Flea.
Oh, Flea.
Not Lee Pace. I'm aware of Lee Pace. I've seen the trailers.
Okay, so
oh my god, I'm this close to watching it just because of him.
That the show no one has watched. Just because I do really like that not their most recent album, but like the Runaway or something, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I do not like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No, I don't like them either, but Flea is hilarious and wonderful. And he's a dream.
Isn't he like 70?
And he and John Lurie are like buds.
We're not watching that show, Emily. It had more than one season.
I know, but we can watch Fishing with John.
Okay. All right. Is Peter Honorati on it? Okay.
No.
So Peter Honorati, we cut to the home where we have an establishing shot of the house at night, by the way. Emily. Okay.
Yes.
You did.
I did catch that.
All right. Not a great looking establishing shot either, folks. It was hard for people to do establishing shots.
It looked really bad. Really bad.
Joe's home and he's hiding from his kids.
The boys are fighting again.
And now Joe slinks down on the couch to hide from them, but they find him. So it's dark out now. And it was 3:00 before. So I don't know what time it gets dark in New Jersey during the school year, but I guess we're going to say it's about 5:30.
So he's been gone for his interview that we find out did not happen for a very long time.
Very long time. So the kids are now arguing about the telescope. So Scotty Jean messed up Paulie's telescope so he could watch American Gladiators on neighbor's TV. Why couldn't Scotty Jean watch American Gladiators on their own TV?
Because he's 7 years old and he's yanking his brother's chain a little bit.
Joe's like, can't you just fix it? And Paulie's like, I can, but I really want to see Jupiter and it's going to take forever.
Yeah, this it's going to take forever thing is like, oh, I can't do it. It's going to take a long time. When you see the telescope, it's not like a big fancy telescope. It's not going to take a long time. Okay. I'm not the only one. Okay.
But Joe's response to that is, I don't want to hear about Jupiter, you fucking nerd. Some of that's inaccurate, but not all of it. So Paulie goes away dejected. And Joe says to Scotty Jean, can't you just leave your brother alone? And he's like, why do you bother your brother? Mm-hmm. Can you leave him alone? Sure. Mom comes in. Scotty Jean's like, I was lying or something. And so.
And then you get a scene with Joe and Mary Page Keller on the couch, smooching. It was really their chemistry, like I said before. Like, he kisses her on the lips, which, whatever, that happens. He kisses her, like, on the bridge of the nose and then, like, on the forehead. And I was like, this is a little too real. This is a little too real for me. And I'm starting to get nauseous. Sorry.
Okay.
I have nothing against people being in love, but that was gross.
Tone it down, people.
It's just a shitty ABC sitcom. Come on.
So Joe missed the interview entirely because of Stan. She says, I believe in you and have all the faith in you. And he says, I'd believe you if you were naked when you said that.
Yeah, that was gross. Extra gross.
Then Scotty Jean is bored. They say to do his homework. He says, no, I'm hungry. They say, we'll make dinner in a bit, which is when I started wondering what time it was and where Joe had been after he missed his job interview.
And who was going to be making the dinner?
Mom.
Because they were just sitting on the couch.
It seems like they'd make the daughter do it, really.
We haven't seen her in a bit, so yeah.
Do we even know who makes dinner? Do we even have a dinner scene? Anyway.
No.
So instead, Scotty Jean goes upstairs, takes Paulie's Marvel comic off of his bed. I did not go and see which Marvel comic it is, but you can see symbiote Spider-Man in the bottom left corner. So it is a Marvel comic. And he sits down on his bed and he pulls up the covers. And what does he discover? Petey the dinosaur with his head torn off.
I thought that was funny. Yes. I thought it was fun. And he screams. And another commercial break, I think.
Another commercial break. Yeah, I've started putting in when we have the commercial breaks. Okay, so Scotty Jean's going to break the telescope. Amy was in the middle of a phone call, and she has
very important phone call.
Very important phone call. Paulie says he's innocent, except Petey recorded Paulie destroying it because that's how that works. And then Joe's like, "We'll just get you another one, dude." And in some of the only potentially amusing moments, Mom is like, "No, we got him the last one, remember?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, you're gonna have to buy him another toy, Paulie." And then Amy's like, this was not worth getting off the phone, to which my note is true dat. I would be on the phone during this. And then again, Paulie gets reminded that
he's the big brother, and there are higher expectations for him, etc., etc.
So then we're actually gonna get into wrapping everything together now. But first, Paulie says, or Joe says, "I'm done with your attitude, Paulie." And Paulie says, and we'll talk later. And Paulie says, "You never hear a word I say." And Joe says, "Wrong again." Except Joe never does hear a word he says. That's the point. He is wrong. No, Joe's the wrong one. He's a bad dad.
He's
That's
a bad
what this
dad.
show's about.
That's what this episode and the way it kind of gets tied together with Stan, it was a little eye roll, cheesy, but this whole episode is about treating your kids fairly. Except for the girl. The girl is off limits because she's a girl. But you have to treat your male children exactly the same.
Yes. Okay. So at the restaurant, also kind of funny, Ray is listening to Joe bitch, and he's just like, I don't know, man, maybe he's going through his dinosaur mutilation phase. And he's like, what? And he's like, man, I don't have kids. I don't care. And I'm just like, Ray, I don't have kids. I don't care. They're your kids. You deal with that.
Why didn't you ask your brother, who does have a son?
It's 1993, man. Rubbers were fucking $6 when you needed them. All right. Let's just be real here. Okay. So then Stan comes in and says, okay, since you're not willing to be a full-time chef, I'm meeting with Vinny Rizzo or Vincenzo Rizzo or something.
Yeah.
To which Joe is like, Vinny Rizzo the phony? He's a pretentious moop. And Stan's like, whatever, man. I offered him half the place because I need a real cook. And Joe's like, but this place has been in the family for 30 years. And Stan's like, well, if you stay, I'll give you half the restaurant. And Joe's like, ha, that's not what I meant, dude.
And the old man says exactly what I was thinking the whole time. He says, who could have saw that coming? Like, as if this was some sort of trap. We're gonna offer the job to the most detestable person and try to trick Joe into taking it instead. Doesn't work. In this case, Joe's, no, I don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. There's a nice, very brief moment with Joe and not Mary Page Keller, Mimi Kennedy, where he's like, I'm sorry. She's like, me too. It was just like this really sweet moment between the two of them. It has potential. It has so much potential to be like decent, and it just goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The writing. Is that what we can blame?
That's a nice thing to call it. No, I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's too much, right? Like, they don't acknowledge that. They acknowledge Joe needs improvement, but they don't acknowledge that Joe should be more aware of needing improvement.
Yeah.
And he's very far along for not needing improvement. And this is kind of the whole thing, this whole idea of, well, I think the kids in Mr. Mom were younger too, right? So like the joke of that was you were taking care of a baby and stuff like that, right? And they were like 6 years old. They weren't.
They were much younger.
School and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the problem is that you've got to establish that no matter when a dad wants to improve, that's the first time he should have ever been asked to improve. So when he's 36 and he's finally not being a shit, that you're supposed to congratulate him for that because he's a man and something. I mean, it's just so fucked up too, because this one, yes, there's a good idea.
Yeah.
In this, because we're walking back the whole premise of the show by the end of this episode, folks.
Yeah.
We're done with Joe looking for a job. Spoilers. He will have a job by the end of this episode.
But there's also this thing with this specific episode is he doesn't understand. So the lesson he learns is, how to be a better dad to his sons. He doesn't understand it until he realizes how it has affected his older brother. Mm-hmm. The same scenario. So it's this weird white man, like, I don't understand anything until it directly impacts me.
I'm the youngest,
bullshit.
Spoiled, entitled, and I didn't have to learn any better until I was in my mid-30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, fuck these guys. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing is like Mimi Kennedy's she's way too empathetic toward him. There's also a thing about that is it's like, yes, having them be wholesome to each other's cute, but then having her be shitty to the customers is fucking weird.
And it's annoying.
Yeah.
And it looks like she's dressed. She's dressed funny for being a waiter.
She's not waiting anymore because that was the other scene. Presumably.
Oh, right.
They don't have any other cast members, so they need their
16-year-old waitress who's getting sexually harassed by their son. It's more realistic. I worked in the service industry when I was a teenager. It's much more realistic.
Yes, we don't need. Yeah, okay. So the more news comes out, the more likely we're going to need to stop making jokes about this, because this is kind of like when you talk about mid-90s Miramax movies. You're like, why didn't that actress go on to anything? Oh, because Harvey Weinstein tried to rape her. Oh, why isn't the girlfriend back on this episode of Joe's Life? Oh, because Danny Masterson tried to rape her. That's why. Okay. So, and this is some of your American Dream bullshit.
So Joe goes into the office / wine cellar to talk to Stan about why he doesn't want the job, to give him a heartfelt explanation as to why he doesn't want to be a full-time chef. And it's all this gross, like, I spent 10 years of my life working in this other industry, and I was this close to becoming a boss, and I was going to have a corner office, and I blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's really gross. It's like he's explaining why he's passionate about something that is so lacking in passion.
Yeah.
I was going to be...
He wants to be
a middle manager.
It's about how...
I just want to be a middle manager.
It's about how if you are a white Catholic, you want to be a WASP without having to give up your Catholic identity, which is television from 1984 to, I don't know, 1997 or something. But that's a whole thing. Movies got a lot less Catholic for some reason in the late 90s. They kind of peaked with Bringing Out the Dead, which is great, but for some reason, people make a lot less movies about how great the Catholic Church is these days.
I wonder why.
It's weird. It's weird that you don't get as much free promotional movies for an international rape cabal. Boom. There you go. Do we have any listeners? I think we do.
I don't know. You keep track of that.
I don't keep track of that. I don't want anybody who looks like me listen to this podcast. What are you talking about? Okay. I don't make content for white people. For white men. We know that.
Fair enough.
Bottom of my concern thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
so he's going on about his dream, and suddenly the brother hits him with a little bit of reality and was like, do you know what my dream was? My dream was to be a journalist. And Joe's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I thought you wanted to run this place. He's like, no, our dad wanted me to run this place. He thought, as the first son, this should be my dream. And so when push came to shove, all of my energy was put into running this business, and I could not live out my dream. And he's like, you wouldn't understand, Joe, because you were the younger and you got everything you wanted.
And then he's like, you got to go to air shows, Joe, because you always wanted to make airplanes and bomb brown people. And he's like, when I told Dad I wanted to be a writer, he said, you can write the specials on the board. And when I tried to talk to Pop, if I cared about it, it wasn't important to him.
Yeah.
Kind of like Jupiter, Joe.
Yeah,
Kind of like
duh.
Jupiter. And so,
And Joe literally has that moment. You don't hear those words, but you can see it in his eyes. He does the best acting that he can, where he has this realization that that's what he's doing to his kids.
so yeah. And then Stan's going to do whatever he can to keep the restaurant alive, even if it means hiring this shitty guy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he needs help with the money because they got to start paying for Danny Masterson's trials. Okay, so then we go home and mom fixed the dinosaur.
And it's working, like it's working again. And what we didn't talk about is at the end of the scene where the head's ripped off.
Right.
Joe pushes the button and it sounds like it's not going to be talking anymore. It does the, when a tape is destroyed. But mom says, "Oh no, it was just the battery. It's working." And then she does kind of a funny thing. She kind of has a little realization, like, is the sanity and, positive emotional well-being of the family worth, a brief moment of happiness for one of the children? And then she smashes it with like a hammer or something. I don't know where the fuck she got that. I thought that was kind of funny. That spoke to me like 90s woman who is expected to have a job, support the family, raise the kids, just expressing frustration in one tiny little soliloquy. It was beautiful.
So then she's like, "So how'd work go?" And he's like, "Well, Stan offered me half the restaurant." Why do I have OMG Ray and the finger written down?
I don't know. So what he does is he couches that though about Ray offering him half the restaurant. Stan offering him half the restaurant. He's like, Ray did this.
Yeah, he did
so and so did this, and he couches it. And then the mom is like, "Oh my God, Ray did what?" And then, but she's trying again, emotional labor on her part to hide her surprise about Stan offering him half of the restaurant, because she is trying to gauge how he feels about it, because he is not showing any emotion. So she can't show any emotion in case it is conflicting with his emotion about it. So I live this. I hate it, but it's exactly what is happening in this scene. She's trying to gauge his reaction to it. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm doing it. And he just I don't know. I don't know why did it. Like, he doesn't explain it, right?
Well, he explained that he actually loved cooking and things like that. He just wasn't willing to make the sacrifice or something. So he just was willing to, give an inch, but in this case, own half of a successful business and do work that he loves instead of kissing ass all day, like he should want to. Okay, so then there's some more appreciate and respect, and I respect you, blah blah blah. But then
and smooching. There's a lot of gross smooching.
I need to start just doing kissy face emojis. So Paulie, they go out back. So Joe tells Paul to come out back, and here's the telescope, which doesn't make any sense, right? Because the telescope must have been in their bedroom, their shared bedroom.
Yeah.
But now it's out back, and Joe wants to see Jupiter, and he's going to be a bud.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of hesitation on the part of Paul because he doesn't trust that his dad actually gives a shit. So he's like, "You can't see it. You need the telescope to see it. You can't just see it," which is not 100% true. You can see it. It just doesn't look like Jupiter. It looks like a star that's not twinkling. And then so the dad is again doing a little bit of work to try to prove to his son that he does actually give a shit. And he's like, "Oh, well, what's that thing there that looks like a scooper?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the Big Dipper." And he's like, "And that big bright one, what's that one?" "Oh, that's the North Star." And it's just like something any kid who lived outside of a city knows about the night sky, right? And slowly Paul begins to engage in something that he's actually interested in with his father. How nice. How nice.
And then there's one that looks like a giant boob, right? They find one. Yep. Cool.
Or a penis. They don't actually say what it is. No, and it's not that. It's Joe says, "Oh, when I was a kid, I used to make up my own constellations." And he's like, "See that there? And if you go here and do that, and he draws a shape in our imaginations, and I didn't pay close enough attention to get what it was. So
I didn't either, but
except don't tell your mother.
Don't tell your mother.
Yeah.
So I was assuming a boob. So my other note for that is you can see the night sky in New Jersey. Cool. I'm not sure I believe that.
I can see it here.
Well, that's really.
Yeah. I mean, not all of it, obviously, but I can see stars.
You can go out and look up in the sky and see boobs.
I could stay in my apartment and see boobs. Jesus.
Okay, so and then there's something about naming a star, but you have to pick a good one or something.
Yeah.
And
so again, Joe is taking the extra steps to try to engage with Polly. He's like, let's pick out a star and name it after you. You know, you can do that. And he's like, well, you got to go. You can't just pick any one of these stars that we can see. They do it with stars that are so far away you can't even see them. So you have to go to the observatory to see them.
And Joe's like, let's
go to the observatory and let's find one and let's buy it for you for $50 or whatever.
And now show me the rest of the night sky, Polly. And Polly's like, we don't have time, Dad. And Dad says, Polly, we've got the whole night.
Aww. And there's a sweet scene. Dad puts his arm around the sun and aww. I love how all the troubles are solved.
And then we cut to something that Toy Story ripped off. So it's the stuffed animals. And
there was a commercial, and I think
no, it's not a commercial. It's the end credits. The end titles of the You Didn't Stay.
So, what happened was the screen got smaller and it went to play the next episode. So I assumed it was over. So I just turned it off.
It does it early. So the end titles are maybe the dinosaur, Petey, somehow resurrected, or some stuffed animal. And it's talking to the other stuffed animals about how they're going to revolt in just a second. But then nobody can move because they're not real. So they need a new plan. And it just reminded me that the Wally Shawn dinosaur in Toy Story is a ripoff of a comic strip from Dark Horse Presents that this guy used to do. And so basically Toy Story was it's Joss Whedon. So obviously it's just repackaged jokes from other places. Apparently some of it from the end of Joe's life. So there you go.
It's not an original idea.
But anyway, so we've reached
Joe's
the end
life
of another Joe's life.
Yeah, it's great.
At no time in Joe's life until now did he think about how shitty his older brother's life has been. Cool.
So episode 4, this is where we need to start updating the Wikipedia article because there's no directed by, no written by. I mean, come on. The least we can do while we're watching this is update some of this, give more accurate information into the world. It's called Shop in the Name of Love, and I don't have a synopsis of it, so I can't see it. I'm very excited for the return of serial rapist Danny Masterson. I thought he was in all of the episodes. Who knew?
Who knew that Joe's life did not have a good, reliable... Oh, wait, it's on Wikipedia. It doesn't have the information. It could be on IMDb.
It could be.
Yeah, so
I'm looking forward to that.
Are you looking forward to it?
Always.
Word. Okay.
Always. I love watching complete garbage. Makes me happy. I'd rather watch complete garbage than The Bear. Is that weird? I am going to watch Foundation. He's such a dream. Such a dream.
Cool.
I'll let you know how it is.
I think it's boring. I think that's what it is.
Have you seen it?
No, but I know everybody I've ever heard talk about watching it quit because it was boring, and everybody I've ever heard try to read the books quit because they were boring.
Oh, who wrote the books? Is it Isaac Asimov?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Though I think Isaac Asimov's boring. Like I think that's one of the things of his.
He knew a little bit about a lot of things, but maybe not about writing. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. I guess I'm just going to wrap it up since Andrew's stretching.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. What else? What did you learn from this episode, Emily?
I learned that I don't want children. Okay, well, thank you. We will see you next time when we're watching episode 4 of Joe's Life. Andrew, see you in television land.
See you in television land, Emily.